What's going on, everybody? How you doing? This is a donation request. This video is for Phil Caselli. It's for Rob. It's for Phil Caselli. Okay, so Phil Caselli has been on this channel for I don't know how long, asking for Boston, for the debut album of Boston. Every single post, that's all he posts. To the point where, in some of the things they said, just like, yo, I'm like 2 seconds away from blocking your ass. So, here it is for you. Thanks to Rob. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to comment a million zillion thank yous for Rob in this video. And so help me if you don't. So help me. Okay? So this is for Rob. This is a donation request. This is Boston's. This is the beginning, the first track of Boston's debut album. That's what we are starting today. This will be a longer video because I'm going to go through all kinds of information. If you don't like that, or you don't need to hear the information, you don't want to watch any of that stuff, go and skip to the song. You want to go and hear the song, go and listen to the song. You don't need to even listen to me. Cool? All right. Wow. I'm having a great day. I had a really late gig last night. I'm exhausted. I got another one tonight. And, gigs shouldn't go that late. They shouldn't go that late. They just shouldn't. And again, this is a donation request. If you're new here, please subscribe. Check out my videos, all kinds of videos, reaction videos, bass videos, music videos. Check it out. If you like the channel, all kinds of ways to support the channel. You can hit super thanks underneath this video. You can hit me direct in the description. I got PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Amazon wishlist. And I do donation requests just like this one. So if there's something you want me to watch, listen to, talk about, hit me direct, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo in the notes section. Leave a link. Leave a description. Let me know what you want the video to be on, and I will make the video. You can also email me at jpanreadsemail@gmail.com. Thank you, guys. Okay, so Boston, American band formed in Boston, Massachusetts, 1975. Tom Scholz. The band's core members, Tom Scholz. Okay, played the majority of instruments on the band's 76 debut album. Original lead vocalist Brad Delp, among a number of other musicians who varied from album to album. Boston experienced significant commercial success during the 70s and 80s. Best known songs, More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, blah, 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 blah. And has sold more than 75 million records worldwide, including 31 million units sold in the United States, which 17 million were the band's debut album and 7 million was the second album, Don't Look Back. Placing the group at number 63 among the world's best selling music artists. Altogether, the band has released 6 albums, career spanning 50 years. Chord output has been minimal since the 80s. After original longtime lead singer Brad Delp died in 2007, a number of vocalists have taken the stage. Tom Scholz first started writing music in 1969 while he was attending MIT, where he wrote an instrumental foreplay while attending MIT. Joined the band Freehold, met guitarist Bobby Goodrow and drummer Jim Mazdea, who would later become members of Boston. Vocalist Brad Delp was added to the collective in 1970 after graduating with a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT. Worked for Polaroid, using his salary to build a recording studio in his basement and to finance demo tapes recorded in professional recording studios. Early demo tapes were recorded with Delp on vocals, Goodrow on guitar, Mazdea on drums, and Scholz on guitar, bass, and keyboards. Demo tapes were sent to record companies, but received consistent rejections. 1973, Scholz formed the band Mother's Milk with Delp, Goodrow, and Mazdea. That group disbanded in 74, but Scholz subsequently worked with Mazdea and Delp to produce 6 new demos, including More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Rock and Roll Band, Something About You, Hitch a Ride, Don't Be Afraid. Scholz stated they finished 4 of the 6 by the end of 74, and they finished More Than a Feeling and Something About You in 75. Scholz played all the instruments on the demos except for the drums, which were played by Mazdea, and used self-designed pedals to create the desired guitar sounds. I mean, he was, a mechanical engineer? That's kind of cool, actually. All right, let's get to the album. Actually, you know what? I'd kind of like to know, some stuff like this. 79, Scholz began writing new material, but Boston's former co-manager, Paul Ahern, argued that according to an agreement Scholz had signed years earlier with Ahern, Ahern owned a percentage of all songs Scholz wrote from that point on. Yo, how do you misread that in a contract? Delayed further by the dispute, Schultz suggested that in the meantime, the individual members should work on whatever other projects they might be considering. While Schultz and Delp were recording new material for the third Boston album, CBS filed a $60 million lawsuit against Schultz, alleging breach of contract for failing to deliver a new Boston album on time. During the same period, Schultz founded his high-tech company, Schultz Research and Development, which made amplifiers and other musical electronic equipment. Its most famous product, the Rockman amplifier, was introduced in 1982. Very cool. Wow, I mean, not the lawsuit part, but all this stuff. I mean, the guy's a mechanical engineer, you know? I mean, he's not, yeah. Legal trouble slowed progress toward the completion of the next album, which took 6 years to record and produce. Joining Schultz in the album's development, again, were Delp and Jim Mazdea. 1985 guitarist Gary Pill left Sammy Hagar's touring band. Okay, lawsuit's first round was eventually decided in Schultz's favor, and Schultz moved the band to MCA Records. CBS case took 7 years to run its course, and in April 1990, Schultz won. Wow. How expensive was that, though? That's annoying. That's crazy. Okay, so that was the only lawsuit issues that they had. I didn't know if there was more going on. Okay, Boston. Their debut, released August 25th, 1976 by Epic Records, was produced by Tom Schultz and John Boylan, multi-instrumentalist and engineer who had been involved in the Boston music scene since the late 60s. Schultz started to write and record demos in his apartment basement with singer Brad Delp, but received numerous rejections from record, all that stuff. CBS owned Epic, signed the band in 75. Defying Epic Records' insistence on recording the album professionally in Los Angeles, Schultz and Boylan deceived label executives into believing the band was recording on the West Coast, when in reality the bulk was being tracked solely by Schultz in his Massachusetts home in Watertown. Is that what I'm guessing? I assume that this is where they're talking about. I was in Watertown. Been to Watertown about a zillion times. Guys I used to work with live there. Album's contents are a complete recreation of the band's demo tape and contain songs written and composed many years prior. Album style, often referred to as the Boston sound, was developed through Schultz's love for classical music, melodic hooks, and early guitar-heavy rock groups such as the Kinks and the Yardbirds, as well as a number of analog electronic effects developed by Schultz in his home studio. Besides Schultz, who played most of the instruments on nearly all of the tracks, and Delp, other musicians appear on the album, such as drummers Jim Mazdea and Sib Hashian, guitarist Barry Goodrow, and bassist Fran Sheehan. All except Mazdea became full-time band members. Album was released, right. Best-selling debut LP in the US at the time. More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Foreplay a Long Time, major hits, right? I'm going to know them. Obviously, I'm going to know them, right? Album is often regarded as a staple of 1970s rock and has been included on many lists of essentials, of course. Yeah, one of the best-selling debut albums of all time. Late 60s, Tom Schultz began attending MIT, right? We got into this, right? He was working for Polaroid. By night, he played keyboards for bands in the Boston bar and club scene, where he collaborated with drummer Jim Mazdea, the two who shared a concept of the perfect rock band, one with crystal clear vocals and bone-crunching guitars. Viewed themselves as only part-time musicians. Despite this, the duo built a small studio near Watertown, Mass. to record ideas. Schultz recorded for hours, often re-recording, erasing, and discarding tapes to create a perfect song. Both musicians later joined Mother's Milk, a band featuring guitarist Barry Goodrow that vied for recognition in the Boston music scene. Schultz quickly went from keyboards to lead songwriter. The band went through dozens of lead vocalists before Brad Delp auditioned. Delp, a former factory worker at a Danvers electric coil company, spent much of his weekends performing in various cover bands. Upon hearing that Mother's Milk needed a vocalist, Delp drove to Revere Beach, where the three-piece was performing at a club named JoJo's. You know, I never performed in Revere Beach. I only went to Revere Beach I took a vocal lesson from Mark Baxter once. Right? He's a very famous rock vocal instructor, but especially in rock music, he's taught a lot of heavy hitters. And he had a place in Revere Beach. Next to positive, it was in Revere Beach. If I'm this is a long time ago for me, right? Decades now. Delp was impressed that the band had already recorded a demo tape, and he earned his position in Mother's Milk after auditioning with the Joe Walsh song Rocky Mountain Way. Mother's Milk thus became an early version of Boston with Goodrow on lead guitar. In 1973, the band had a 6-song demo tape ready for mailing, and Schultz and his wife Cindy sent copies to every record company they could find. The songs on the demo were More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Rock and Roll Band, Something About You, San Francisco Day, and Love. The group received rejection slips from several labels, RCA, Capitol, Atlantic, Elektra, among the most notable, and Epic Records rejected the tape flatly with a very insulting letter signed by company head Lenny Petz. Jesus. That opined the band offered nothing new. The tape that received the most attention contained embryonic renditions of future songs that would appear on Boston's debut album. Delp departed shortly after that because there just wasn't any money coming in. By 75, Tom Schultz was finished with the club scene, concentrating exclusively on the demo tapes he recorded at home, his basement, having to both pay rent on the house and maintain his recording equipment ate up his finances. At one point, he spent the money he had saved for a down payment on a future home to buy a used professional 12-track tape recorder made by Scully Recording Instruments. He called Delp to provide vocals, remarking, "If you can't really afford to join the band, or if you don't want to join the band, maybe you just want to come down to the studio and sing on some of these tapes for me." Schultz gave a copy of the Mother's Milk demo to a Polaroid co-worker whose cousin worked at ABC Records, who had signed one of Schultz's favorite bands, the James Gang. The employee forgot to mail the tape out, and it sat on his desk for months until Columbia began contacting Schultz about auditioning for the label, after which he sent the tape to ABC. Charles McKenzie, a New England representative for ABC Records, first overheard the tape in a co-worker's office. He called Paul Ahern, independent record promoter in California, with whom he held a gentleman's agreement that if either heard anything interesting, they would inform the other. Ahern connected with Petz at Epic and informed him, even though Petz had passed on the original Mother's Milk demos. Epic contacted Schultz and offered a contract that first required the group to perform in a showcase for CBS representatives, as the label suspected that the band was in reality a mad genius at work in a basement. That's so much of music now, and like has been, right? As opposed to much of the 70s. That's kind of the interesting thing. Much of the 70s was much more bands, as opposed to, mad genius at work in a bit, just like one person or two people, right? Just working in the studio, working on it, all that kind of thing, right? As they had started to lose interest in the project by this time, to complete the lineup, Schultz recruited Goodrow and 2 other musicians who had recorded on the early demos, bass player Fran Sheehan and drummer Dave Courier. In November 75, the group performed for the executives in a Boston warehouse that had previously been used by Aerosmith as a practice facility. 1 month later, CBS Records signed Mother's Milk in a contract that required 10 albums over 6 years. Yo. Wow. Courier quit before he knew the band passed the audition, and Schultz recruited drummer Sib Hashian in his place. Epic had signed an agreement with NABET, the union representing electrical and broadcast engineers, which specified that any recording done outside of a Columbia-owned studio, but within a 250-mile radius of one of those studios, required a paid union engineer to be present. Okay. As such, the label wanted the band to travel to Los Angeles and re-record their songs with a different producer. Schultz was unhappy with being unable to be in charge, and John Boylan, a friend of Ahern, came on board the project. Boylan's duty was to run interference for the label and keep them happy, and he made a crucial suggestion that the band change their name to Boston. Wow. There you go. The rest is history, they say. Okay, all right. Boston was recorded primarily at Schultz Foxglove Studios in Watertown in an elaborate end run around the CBS Brain Trust. Epic wanted a studio version that sounded identical to a demo tape, and Schultz decided he could not work in a production studio, having it adapted to home recording for several years, stating, "I worked alone and that was it." Schultz took a leave of absence from Polaroid and was gone for several months to record the band's album. Wow. "I would wake up every day and go downstairs and start playing," he recalled. Schultz grew annoyed reproducing the parts and being forced to use the same equipment on the demo. Yeah, that would be annoying because you just be like, yeah, and especially how many years has he been living with it at this point? That's kind of, yeah. Basement located in a lower middle class neighborhood on School Street was described by Schultz as a tiny little space next to the furnace in this hideous pine paneled basement of my apartment house, and had flooded from time to time with God knows what. That's horrible. School Street. Okay, I'm going to look at a map. Oh man, it has been so many years. It has been so many years. Am I even going to remember any of this? So when I lived in Boston and I went to college, and then after I graduated college, and then I still lived in Boston, and I was driving around, I was doing gigs, I was all that kind of thing. I was doing gigs like crazy. That was the days of, was it MapQuest? Is that what it was called? MapQuest? And you would print out directions and you would need to use maps also. There wasn't any of this. So, so Watertown. So I remember I lived over here for a long time, right? I lived in the Fens, right? West Fens. I lived over here. I went to college at Berkeley, which is what, over here somewhere, Mass Ave, right? All this somewhere over here, Belvedere, right? I lived on Aghili for a while. I lived on St. Botolph Street. That was my first apartment. Was on St. Botolph, and then I moved to Aghili, and then I graduated Berkeley, which was right over here, and I moved to I moved to, was it Melrose? No, Medford. I moved to Medford. I did eventually live in Melrose, and I lived in Somerville. I lived in Cambridge. There was a year, I moved a lot. It was one year that I moved 4 times. This is like immediately after college, just trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. Like how to make money, all of it. It was not easy. Some people on the channel will know that I played in a Dave Matthews tribute band while I was in college and a little bit after, but mostly while I was in college. And 2 of those guys that were in the band, the guys that were not music students, well, actually one of them was, but not at Berkeley. So 3 of us were Berkeley guys, and then 2 other guys were from UMass Amherst. One of them did do music at UMass Amherst. And actually, the other one eventually went to Berkeley, like years later. Anyways, they both lived in a house in Watertown. So I'd have to drive out there to do rehearsals. One of them, they were both from Massachusetts. We would rehearse. I met them and we rehearsed at his dad's house, at his parents' house, which was, where was it? It was further out in Concord. It was in Concord, Mass. I drove out to rehearse in Concord, Mass. Okay, yeah, over here. Yeah. Anyways, School Street. This is also where that the bomber guy, right? The Boston Marathon bomber, like holed up somewhere in Watertown, right? Where's School Street? Man, I don't remember none of this. Arsenal? Is that where there's like a UPS, the UPS pickup? I remember always getting those UPS slips and like being home, and they would still leave a slip, and it's like, yo, I was home, and I would have to drive somewhere. I feel like it was, here's School Street. I feel like it was on Arsenal. Aztec Electronics. I used them. Wow. Yeah, I totally went to Aztec Electronics to repair amps, I think. Yeah, I mean, I remember that place. I went there for something. Had to have been an amplifier. You would think that the Tom Schultz Boston house would be labeled, right? Like as a historic place or something. Right? Oh, there it is. There it is. Oh, they blocked it off. All right. They blocked it off so you can't see it. Lame. Wow, Massachusetts. It's been a long time. I've probably driven by this a zillion times and never knew. Or cared. Should I also say that part? Yeah, or cared. Never knew or cared. Wow, that's wild. So there it is. Man, I wish I remembered where those guys lived in Watertown that we used to rehearse in. I mean, I can read every single one of these street names. I'm not going to remember. Yeah, I'm not going to remember it all. No way. All right, cool. There it is. All right, let me get back to it. There was a Hammond organ and a Leslie stuffed in the corner of the room alongside the drums. Whenever it was time to record the organ parts, they would tear the drums down and pull out the Leslie. Boylan felt that while Schultz's guitars sounded amazing, Schultz did not understand how to record acoustic instruments correctly and flew in engineer Paul Grupp to instruct him on microphone technique. It's actually pretty cool. Boylan's hands-on involvement would center on recording the vocals and mixing, and he took the rest of the band out to the West Coast where they recorded Let Me Take You Home Tonight. It was a decoy, recalled Schultz, who recorded the bulk back home in Watertown without CBS's knowledge, while Boylan arranged for Delp to have a custom-made Taylor acoustic guitar for thousands of dollars charged to the album budget. Schultz recorded such tracks as More Than a Feeling in his basement with a $100 Yamaha acoustic guitar. Yeah, because it doesn't, none of that stuff matters. No, people, when you hear something on an album, you have no idea. You don't know what it is, how much it costs, any of that kind of thing. It doesn't matter. That's not what you hear. You hear the sound and the tone and all that, right? The mix, all that. That spring, Boylan returned to Watertown to hear the tracks on which Schultz had recut drums and other percussion and keyboard parts. He then hired a remote truck from Providence, Rhode Island, to come to Watertown, where it ran a snake through the basement window of Schultz's home to transfer his tracks to a 3M79 2-inch 24-track deck. Entire recording was completed in the basement, save for Delp's vocals, which were recorded at Capitol Studios, Studio C, with Warren Dewey engineering the overdubs. That's probably a good idea, actually. Some of the equipment used in the recording of the album was designed by Schultz himself. That's really cool, I think. That's really cool. All vocals were double-tracked except the lead vocal, and all the parts were done by Delp in quick succession. When Schultz arrived in Los Angeles for mixing, he felt intimidated. He feared the professional engineers would view him as this hick who worked in a basement. This hick in Watertown. Watertown is not... I would just never describe... I mean, that's not to say that there aren't places in Massachusetts that I would describe as hick, but I don't think of it as the... like, I live in Florida right now. Let me just start with that. I live in Florida right now, so the use of the word hick in Massachusetts versus Florida is totally not the same. Also, I grew up in New Jersey, in central New Jersey and the shore, but even still, there was like the border of like the kids that I went to school with. It was like if they lived in certain areas, like once you went, like you cross this imaginary line south, all of a sudden the trucks came out, right? Like your big trucks, right? All that stuff. Anyways, so like the idea of hick, and also like growing up, like I grew up in the sticks, right? You would call it the sticks, right? Yeah, hick. Yeah, I don't think so. That's like who's that dude from the cat from Stained? Aaron Lewis. It's like Aaron Lewis is a hick. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, he like became that or something, Was he always really a hick? I mean, maybe in his heart, but he grew up in Massachusetts, right? Didn't he? Anyways, I just don't see it as the same. Okay. Some hick. Yeah, right. Some hick who went to MIT. An idiot. Anyways, yeah. Some hick who went to MIT. No, you're like some like nerd. You're a nerd, right? You're a mechanical engineering nerd. Okay. Instead, Schultz felt they were backward in their approach and lacked the knowledge he had obtained. These people were so swept up in how cool they were and how important. Yeah, you're in Los Angeles now. And how important it was to have all this high-priced crap that they couldn't see the forest for the trees, he said. Boylan encountered his only real confrontation with the autocratic Schultz during the mixing stage, in which Schultz handed the guitar tracks, Boylan the drums. Okay, in which Schultz handled the guitar tracks, Boylan the drums, and Dewey the vocals, with Steve Hodge assisting. Schultz pushed guitars too high in the mix, rendering vocals inaudible at times. The operation has been described as one of the most complex corporate capers in the history of the music business. Except for Let Me Take You Home Tonight, the album was a virtual copy of the demo tapes. The album was recorded for a few $1,000s, a paltry amount in an industry accustomed to spending hundreds of thousands on a single recording. Right, yeah. Styles of Boston had been categorized as hard rock and arena rock, though the latter had yet to be coined at the time of the album's release. Tracks are described as anthemic and make use of layered melodies and vocal harmonies. Boston is composed mainly of songs written many years before their appearance on the album. Schultz wrote and co-wrote every song on the first album except for Let Me Take You Home Tonight, written by Delp. Played virtually all the instruments and recorded and engineered all the tracks. Boston's sound combines big, giant melodic hooks with massive, heavy, classically inspired guitar parts. For Schultz, the idea of beautiful vocal harmonies was inspired by the Left Bank. I don't know them. The guitar-driven aspect was influenced by the Kinks, Yardbirds, and Blue Cheer. Blue Cheer, oh man, what was their... I feel like it's been a long time since I've heard of them. Another signature element of the Boston sound in terms of production involves the balance between acoustic and electric guitar. To this end, Schultz was inspired by his childhood listening to classical music, noting that the basic concept of setting the listener up for a change that is coming, the music, had been explored for hundreds of years in classical compositions. The record also makes use of multi-part harmonized guitar solos and Baroque melodic devices known as mordents. Is an ornament indicating that the note is to be played with a single rapid alternation with the note above or below, like trills. Okay. They can be chromatically modified by a small, flat, sharp, or natural incidental. The term entered English musical terminology at the beginning of the 19th century. Okay. It's not quite a trill. A trill would be more times. This is, yeah, like an ornamentation. Okay, I get it. More Than a Feeling is an ode to daydreaming. Contains a guitar solo reminiscent of Telstar. Track was inspired by Schultz's love affair years prior while in school. Walk Away Renee by the Left Bank was popular at the time, and it caused Schultz to pine miserably over the girl. More Than a Feeling unintentionally incorporates a chord progression from that particular song following the line, I see my Marianne walking away. Schultz initially felt it was his best shot at a lead single, but became depressed when doubts got the best of him. Ahern loved the track and was sure it would receive maximum airplay. Peace of Mind was penned about Schultz's Polaroid superiors and recorded around the fall of 74. Fort Replay, the extensive introduction to Long Time, was composed many years earlier, 1972. Rock and Roll Band, a track that dates back to the band's Mother's Milk demo, was inspired by Mazdeus experiences performing in various bar combos and was written just as pure fantasy. Album version still features Mazdeus drums from the demo tape. Smoking was written and recorded in 73 and called Shaken. Hitch a Ride was originally titled San Francisco Day. Lyrics starting in New York City and then planning to hitch a ride to head for the other side. This was the first song Delp re-recorded after the original Mother's Milk vocalist left. To create the special effect of a bent note on the track's organ solo, Schultz slowed down one of the recording reels with his finger. Something About You was originally Life Isn't Easy. It was recorded in 75. Last demo was the penultimate track. Okay. All right. Let's get to the song. So we are doing More Than a Feeling. Song by Boston. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Right. took Schultz 5 years to complete. That is crazy. Schultz wrote the lyrics based on the idea of losing someone close and on the way in which music can connect a person to memories of the past. Though not based on any specific event in Schultz's life, he did take the name Marianne from his cousin. Is one of 6 songs, 5 of which eventually appeared on Boston album, that he worked on in his basement from 68 to 75 before Boston got its record contract. Drum part, Jim Asdea. Okay. Song is in compound AABA form. Compound AABA form? What is I suppose when I hear it, maybe I'll know what they mean, but AABA, that's a very basic form. Book of Rock lists, you know, especially like in jazz, right? I mean, I study jazz. AABA is all over jazz. Book of Rock lists suggests that the chorus riff may itself be a subtle homage to Kingsman's classic Louie Louie. Schultz has stated in multiple interviews his fondness for the James Gang, in particular the band's 70s album James Gang Rides Again. Accordingly, the signature riff for More Than a Feeling bears a resemblance to that composed by Joe Walsh for the Rides Again track 10 My Garden. Credits Walk Away Renee by the left bank as the song's main inspiration. Boston's website says that the song is about the power of an old song can have in your life. It was sort of a bittersweet ballad, common theme in Boston songs. Lyrics express the author's discontent with the present and his yearning for a former love named Marianne, whose memory is strongly evoked by an old familiar song. Who is Marianne? He replied, there actually is a Marianne. She wasn't my girlfriend. He explained that when he was 8 or 9 years old, he had a much older cousin who he thought was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen, and that he was secretly in love with her. Laughs. Okay. But he has also stated that the lyrics were inspired by his emotions after a school love affair ended and were influenced by the lyrics of the left bank song Walk Away Renee. Okay, point out that the guitar chord progression G, D over F sharp, E minor, 7, D that follows the line I see my Marianne walking away also comes from Walk Away Renee. Aladort also explains that the guitar solo is unusual and that incorporates mordents and inverted mordents, which are more typically used in Baroque music. Okay. Can we just look at this again? Yeah, so da-na-na, da-na-na, na-na-na, na-na-na, right? Right? Yeah. Da-na-na-na-na-na, right? That kind of thing. So not quite a trill. A trill would be more time. Right? That would be more like a trill. You like that? Right? Beavis and Butthead. That's a trill. Right? You can think of that. That's a trill. Right? This is more like a, yeah, it's just a little flurry or whatever, ornament. Right? What does this one sound like? Right. First played with it, then without, right? Yeah. All right, finally. Here we go. More Than a Feeling. More than a zillionth time I've heard this song. I actually feel like I don't know when the last time I've actually sat down and listened to this song in like a way, in like this type of way. It's probably been forever, like literally forever. So it'll be cool to sit down and listen to it specifically. All right, here it is. Let's do it. Bam. It's like a 12 string. sweet little part that they stole. I mean, it's interesting, the quality. Because it's not like super clean and pristine. But that's not the part that matters, right? It's easily looked past. Yeah, there it is. Cool. Oh, slow down. Slow down. So, yeah, classic. I think that definitely the highlights in this are the two things that they mentioned early on, which was where did they say it? Was it was Mazdea and Tom Schultz, where they were talking about like the quintessential rock band or rock sound or whatever. Where was it? Where did they talk about that? Oh, it was in here. Right here. Concept of the perfect rock band. Crystal clear vocals and bone crunching guitars. I mean, certainly they nailed this. Certainly they nailed crystal clear vocals. Bone crunching guitars. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they were bone crunching, but it was definitely very guitar-y. Right? Any like guitar bros or like, you know, those like older cats that are like super into this kind of thing and like this type of guitar, you know, like the guys that still come out to gigs of bands, you know, like local cover bands and stuff like that. They still have the long hair, right? And they come out and they love the guitar, you know, all that stuff. Like those kind of guys. Yeah. This is for them. This is for them. Phil Caselli, you got hair? Let's see your profile picture. Don't look like you got hair anymore, buddy. I don't know if this is you. Anyways, yeah, but maybe you're one of those guys. Anyways, bone crunchy guitars. This is what this song personifies to me. This is that. And it is. It's a very defining song for the era, for sure. Very defining song for the era. And it's nice. And also, like, you know, when the claps come in, right? Let's go back to the song. Yeah. Yeah, when the claps come in. This is all very nice, right? It's almost a little with that like acoustic-y, right? With that acoustic, it's almost a little, you know, hippie vibe, but this vocal is where it's at, and then the guitar comes in, right? And all of a sudden we're more of a rock band here, right? But we got the claps, right? So it's a little bit more. I feel like the claps bring in more people because anyone can clap. Can anyone clap in time or on 2 and 4? That's a different story, but everyone can clap. It's like everyone has a voice. Not everyone has a voice everybody wants to listen to, but everyone's got a voice. So it's like a thing that can bring in more people, right? Anyways. Section is very nice, right? Short little section, but it's very nice. Kind of bittersweet type of sound.
So many people have come and gone. Their faces fade as the years go by. Yet I still recall as I walk around.
Solo section. Yeah. Just melodic. It's not like shredding. It's very basic. Actually, it's just that it's melodic. That's the important thing about it. The ornamentation, that's... They're certainly not the first to, you know, to have like classical sounding guitars and guitar solos at all. And especially as time has went on, that's definitely a thing. It's just you know, just different. You know, when you're working on music and you're like practicing, and you're practicing things like scales and even solos and stuff like that, or just any of it. There's like your different approaches. I'm sure I've done it on video before, where if you're doing like if you're working on like your arpeggios, there's all the different, like, okay, you play your arpeggios and then you play your arpeggios with a scale approach. You play your arpeggios with a chromatic approach. You play your arpeggios with chromatic approach from below and above, from above and below. You know, it's all stuff like this, basically. It's all stuff like this. So... And that's the whole song. You know, I mean, in that way, it is very repetitive, just section-wise, repetitive. So, cool. I mean, it's classic, right? It's classic. Nothing else to say. There it is. All right, great. Up next, all the rest of the videos are not going to be as long as this one. Sorry. All right. Up next is Peace of Mind. So the first side is like the smash. Huh. Yep. Cool. All right. Yeah. People are so into, like, it's wild. People like Bill Caselli who are like so into this. All right, we'll get through it. I mean, this is there's nothing I could say about it. It's indisputable. The only things I could say are opinion, which is all it really is. And if my opinion is not of your opinion, you can come back at me at with facts of like, well, the most sold and the most this, that, and the other thing. It's like, okay, that's fine. Anyways, cool. So More Than a Feeling, classic. There it is. All right, Peace of Mind up next. I will catch you then later.